Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tami Patzer, and today we have an incredibly inspiring guest, Dr. Natasha Oquendo. Dr. Natasha is a distinguished speaker, author, and life and relationship coach with more than 20 years of spiritual leadership. She has had a profound impact on individuals in prisons, homeless shelters, battered women's shelters, and many more. Dr. Natasha is also the compelling voice behind the Power to Prosper podcast, where she empowers women to overcome limitations and to live in the promises of God. Today, we're going to discuss her journey and her latest book, Invitation to Queendom, 7 Keys to Unlock Your God-Given Superpower, and her mission to empower women to pursue their next level in life, ministry, and business. Welcome.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
Great. I'm so happy to talk to you. Today, it's funny because when people book their own time, today's theme has really been about being empowered in the conversations I've had with different people. So I think that's interesting because I did not control who would show up and choose certain times and dates. So I just think it's interesting. So tell me, what inspired you to write your book, Invitation to Queendom, 7 Keys to Unlock Your God-Given Superpower?
Well, during the time, I was actually trying to put a women's conference together in Atlanta. And I had some women, doing the footwork for me there because I'm in Florida. And during that time, it seemed like everything was so hard to get going. And so I prayed again and I said, God, okay, I don't understand. These doors are closing. What is going on? And then he began to tell me to write this book, that I needed to write this book before I did any other events. And so I began to write the book and my life was shut down completely to write the book. And so many things went on while I was writing this book. I think it was like 3 deaths in the family. And I was like, Lord, okay, I don't understand. How can I write this book and stay focused with all of this going on? And he just assured me to continue to push through to write the book. And so within that year, I was able to finish it. And during that time, what inspired me is I began to see beyond just conferences of women of faith. The book, I believe, and what I saw, what I envisioned were women who, of course, were generals in the faith, veterans, I would say. But then, and it would be confirmation for those. But I also saw women who he reminded me, like myself, came into the things of God and really did not understand the process and really didn't have much help. And so that inspired me to give women a pattern or a template of the process of faith and also their identity in Christ, to know who God says we are. Right. And then I saw women who believe God exists, maybe, but were not in the faith or not in church, who could pick this book up and actually their mindset be shifted about who they are and what their identity is. To hear the Creator himself say, you get what I'm saying, different things about us, and for us to be able to move in that with more confidence, right? To be empowered, to inspired to do, instead of going with what the world has said about us. If we go with that, then a lot of times we are beneath our value, if that makes sense. And so that's what inspired me to write the book, of course, being in obedience to the Lord, but also seeing all the different types of women. And not only that, what I have experienced is men buying my book. I just went to a business expo as of recent, and a couple of men bought the book and said that they would read it and then pass it on to their wives, of course, but they wanted to read the book because they felt like there would be some nuggets in the book, some revelation in the book. And I said, of course, I believe it would be. So it is moving more farther. It's exceeding my expectation.
Well, that's really phenomenal. So what is one of the main messages that you really want your readers to pull from your book?
Well, first and foremost, like I said, I want them to understand that God sees us totally different. He created us, right? And to be empowered and inspired by his view of us, first and foremost. And then I also want them to be able to see where they may be in their process and to understand or see how to get to the next level in their process, how to get past different hangups, how to get past, how to understand what God is expecting of us as women. And also to know that we are in the time of the woman. Now, I say that because God gave me that as prophecy some years back. And now I'm able to actually see it. And I kind of talk about it in the book a little bit, but I'm seeing where women are being vindicated who have been sexually abused. It's like God is coming in and vindicating the woman and also trying to inspire us to come to that level where our value is, that we are valuable, that this world does need us. We are much needed.
I agree with that. So you've had significant experience with women in prison. Can you share a story from that time and how it's really shaped your mission?
I also talk about that in the intro. That's where it started for me, I would say, as far as my mission with women. I was visiting the prison, right? Volunteering and going out there to speak and to serve. And in this particular visit, I got there and I could hear the bars and things closing behind me. They were significant this time. Now, it had always happened, but for some reason during this visit, it was significant. Now, on the way there, I started praying against the spirit of suicide. For some reason, that fell on me really, really heavy on my way to the prison, that particular visit. And I was walking through the compound, checking in, and I kept saying, I pulled you down, you spirit of suicide, you stronghold of suicide. And as I walked over the threshold into the sanctuary, the woman who was leading prayer, she said, the Lord said the stronghold of suicide that was hovering over the prison has been broken. And so as service went on, many women were confessing that they wanted to kill themselves and things of that nature. And so there was a lot of confirmation as to why I was praying to that capacity. But at the end of that service, God moved mightily. I got a chance to lay hands on women. And I had one lady in particular come up to me. And when she did, she just fell into my arms crying. She said, I love to see you. She said, I look for you every time. She said, because it's like you bring God here with you. And that just, I was choked up. I'm like, Lord, this is a lot. It felt weighty, like a responsibility. And so when I was leaving, like I say, the bars and everything were phenomenally loud in my spirit, if that makes sense. And then God ministered to me on my way home and said, this is what I'm calling you to empower women. He said, and beyond the prison, he said, but even looking at the women that are in the prison, there are women that are free, that are bound, that don't know their identity, that don't, know how to get to that place, to get to their next level. And so it became surreal to me. And that's how I got that mission as empowering women.
Wow, that's a pretty phenomenal. As you were describing it, I could see in my mind that you walking through the prison and the noise of the bars and the whatever that loud, that sealing you in as you walk in, and of course sealing you in and making it so that nobody could go out. And I imagine that was really powerful. So you mentioned that while you were writing this book, that you had deaths in your family. What other challenges did you face while you were trying to write this book. And how did you write it? Did you physically write it or type it, or did you do audio where you recorded it? I'm interested in that.
I actually did both. I handwritten it, and then I turned around and typed it. And so it was kind of like I want to say a twofold work to really, really get it. You get what I'm saying? So I had handwritten most of it, but then I started to type it and I finished out typing it. Other challenges that came with writing the book, I have twin adult daughters. They're like 24. That particular year, one of my daughters, I'm talking about right at the beginning of the year when I was writing the book, had to have an emergency surgery to get her gallbladder removed. And so that was something that was just, she goes to the doctor, she's to the hospital, she's having pain. And the next minute they're saying they have to do an emergency surgery because it was getting ready to erupt. It was going to rupture. And so that's life-threatening. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so that happened. Also, one of the members of our ministry called me, and their grandson, was being rushed to the hospital by ambulance, and he had passed out. And they were trying to say that he had, some form of cancer. They were running tests and having to pray and intercede for that. And hardships, maybe because there's an assignment, maybe because there's something that God is pulling us to do. And so all of those different challenges, my grandmother passed away. I had an aunt pass away. My mom's husband, my stepfather, passed away in the house. And so we had to rush over there because she doesn't stay far from me, to make sure my mom is okay. And just that whole process, I didn't know how it went, but we were there and the people had to come and, the body was there. So it's a lot. I'm like, wow, I just didn't know or understand that process. But I thank God that he had given me and my husband enough to be able to lend that strength and prayer during that season. But it was a lot. And I had to minister at my stepfather's funeral and different things of that nature. So it was something. But I look at it and I see the power. God ministered to me. He said, what you got to understand, Natasha, is that a positive and a negative is what produces power. He said, the positive is me inside of you, me. Greater am I inside of you than he that is in the world. And the assignment, that is the positive. The negative things that are going on will empower your assignment. They will empower the words that are in your book because they are coming from a place of power. I'm having to empower you in this season while you're birthing forth these words to bless other women, to break other women free, to give them, to shift their mindset, to shift their paradigm. And he said, that takes my power. When you're weak, I'm strong. And so I began to understand that, and I moved in it, and it was like, it was coming to me, it was flowing. And then I remember getting really, really anxious towards the end of getting it finished, like having the proofreader look at it and all of that part of the process. I got really, really anxious because I was at the end. So I just remember those different instances within that process. But I will say this, I'm just amazed at how many people are literally getting blessed. I've had testimonies, women who were in abusive relationships, literally were getting out of those relationships and things of that nature. And I talked about certain things within the manuscript. So I'm just amazed. I trusted God throughout this process. I had to, and I'm seeing the fruit. I'm seeing the results in the lives of people.
That's really phenomenal when you're able to, like you said, see the results in the lives of people who are touched by something that you've written. Earlier, you talked about knowing your value and accomplishing your purpose. And you referred to this time as the time of the woman. Can you elaborate on that concept?
Yes. When God had given me this about being in the time of the woman, and I think I talk about this on my podcast, Power to Prosper. Um, but I was seeing different women excelling, whether it's in ministry, whether it's in business, um, excelling in the avenue of wealth. He began to really minister to me about the Proverbs 31 woman and her diversity. I actually am working on another project that will expound even further on those things, the different realms that God have given us as women to have authority, that we have authority and can function in. And so just calling women to that place to be the best, and it doesn't even have to be anything major. You don't even a billionaire. It's not that major. If as a mother, knowing your value as a woman, just being the best of yourself, the higher self, as a whatever area that is that you feel God is pulling you into. I believe that we are in the time where God is gracing us and empowering us to do so. I think about it. These were confirmations when we saw Kamala Harris come into vice presidency. We had never seen a woman do that. We had never seen a woman like Hillary Clinton run for president. We had never seen these different things. And so there was so much confirmation to what God had said. And we know of women throughout the years who were phenomenal in ministry. Catherine Kuhlman, Maria Woodworth-Etter, all of these things from the past. And we see a lot of powerful women even now, but there's going to be more of it. And I believe it's because of something. It is a move of God. No different than when Jesus began to move in ministry. He really opened up the way for us to see women. We saw him encounter the woman at the well. And next thing we know, expansion takes place. She goes out with the influence that she has as a woman and say, come here, a man who told me all about myself. People that Jesus may not have been able to reach, but when he encountered that woman, she was able to expand. So as women, it is our time to bring that increase, to bring that expansion, right? We are the ones that God raises up, and we are able to move something a little further, right? And expand it a little more. And so I'm saying that to say that I believe what God said. It is time, and we're seeing more of it. Women are stepping into multimillionaire status, billionaire status. More women are raising up in ministry and accomplishing phenomenal things. I think about how God sent me into the chemical addiction recovery for women. So many testimonies came out of that. I went in there and I ministered, I preached, I prayed, I prophesied, and women were getting out of that facility, getting their children back. I would run into them in restaurants and stuff. They were working and they would say, Miss Natasha, I got my kids back. I got a job. I got this, and I'm just amazed. So I know that God is freeing us. He's freeing us, and he's given plenty of us the keys, right, to unlock those bondages in the lives of people. So I'm excited about it.
That is really exciting. So when you're working with these different women, what are some practical steps that women can take to remove these limitations and to experience healing?
The first thing I would say is and I would say or even in life, I've counseled different women in life. A lot of times, whatever they're going through, they believe that defines them. And so I would say a redefining of who they are. That's where it begins, to change their mindset about themselves, right? And to give them a mindset that God is concerned. You would be amazed. During the process of doing my book, the woman was telling me, I went on an interview, and she was an older woman, and she began to tell me, she said, I thank God that you wrote this. She said, because I just never heard it like this. I didn't even know God was concerned. about women. And I'm like, wow, even the editor, my editor was a woman. She said, oh my goodness, I feel the presence of God while I'm reading this. Oh my God, it gives me a hunger to go ahead and read it. And I'm like, okay, I'm really looking at it like we need to be redefined. We need to know that we are valuable in this world and that God created us for a purpose and for a reason. And in order to tap into that, we first got to acknowledge him, but then we got to acknowledge the fact that he took the time to make us. He took the time to create us. So there is a reason for that, because God doesn't do anything just by happenstance. We're not here just by happenstance. And so I think it starts there, a redefining of who. Uh-oh, we back on? I think you're there.
I think we dropped for a second, but hopefully
Okay.
it'll be okay.
Okay.
So you're talking about the redefining who
Right.
we are as women. Can you tell me a little bit more about your Power to Prosper podcast?
Yes. Power to Prosper podcast was given to me, and the Lord was saying that my voice needed to be heard. And that's because, of course, his spirit needed to be heard. Those words getting into the atmosphere and literally shifting the mindset of the hearers. I ran with this concept about women in the beginning, right? Talking about women in ministry. And at that time, I was being invited on podcasts in Africa, right? In Nigeria. It was airing in Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and everything. And I was on the actual television. So it was a podcast and television station. And I noticed that a lot of misunderstanding about women being able to do ministry was happening. Women in a leadership position at all was happening. And so since I've been in the kingdom of God, which has to be about going on 25 years now, this has always been an issue, but I have been a woman in a leadership role. And so I had to really expound through scripture and bring understanding. And it was amazing, the outcome from that. Men were calling in and asking questions, and they were sending different questions. And it was really, really being effective. So I say that to say Power to Prosper was birthed. Now, I will talk about various things because my desire is to see us move forward in life. And a lot of times we don't know how to, how you can hear the word, but you don't know how to make it applicable or apply it to your life. And so I'm dealing with life and relationships and giving it from a biblical standpoint and a spiritual standpoint, but also making it real for us to be able to grasp and chew and digest. And so that is the point of having Power to Prosper. I want to come on and be transparent, talk about various experiences I've had personally, and to address different things that may be a little controversial or misunderstood, should I say. That's the purpose of it.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't understand how to apply biblical principles to their lives today.
Right.
And I think that there needs to be people who can help people to understand how to apply things to life today, because the way it's written or
right.
people may have misinterpreted what it really says. I mean, there's a lot of room for people to help other people to understand how to use it. I wanted to ask you about how many women are struggling to find their purpose. How do you help the people that you work with discover that purpose?
Experience that lead you to that place. And so first, and letting them not stay stuck in a place. That's one thing that I talk about in the book on the back side of it. helping us to get unstuck, because we'll be stuck. And I'll use an experience. Let me use an example. When I started co-pastoring and preaching, a lot of people kind of had me in that area. What I came to realize over the years is that there are other areas that God is calling me to, right? And if I was staying stuck in my title as a prophet and just staying stuck in that, I would never be over into what I'm doing now, which is marketplace, being able to be a part of the marketplace, right? And I consider a lot of what I've done a part of the marketplace. When you're going into the chemical addiction recovery, that's like going into the marketplace. When you're going into the homeless shelters, that's like marketplace. And so I'm saying that to say, it first begins by walking through each part of that process and what I call get married to part of the process. I could have easily stayed married to being on the pulpit, right? Preaching the message over the pulpit. But God was calling me to do more things. And so now I'm shifting over into a deeper sense of purpose, right? But I still know that it is not complete. We are not complete in it, right? So it's walking out the different processes first, whether and I deal with a lot of women who may be in that part of their process where they feel like they're suffering, where they feel like they're going through certain situations and obstacles. I encourage them that is not the end. It's no different than when I'm in Florida. I believe you're in Florida. When a storm comes, sky gets dark, may rain, thunder, lightning, whatever, winds blowing. But then it could be an hour or two later when the sun starts shining. You get what I'm saying? And that's how it is in life. Though it may be storming in your life right now, encouraging them to not let go, to not stay stuck, to know, to have the faith to know that things are going to get better. Things are going to change. Things are going to shift. And as you're doing that, paying attention. I'm big on this of paying attention while I'm in the process. Having that moment, knowing that I'm in the moment, learning within the moment. Because everything in our life is a learning for us, learning tool. Everything that I've been through, literally, I'm able to expound on. Or everything that I've been through and seen others go through, I'm able to get insight and wisdom on. And so to not play down your process, right? To pay attention, because it's going to be helpful in purpose, if that makes sense.
Yes. So pay attention, even when it seems like that storm is lasting a little bit too long, that literally the sun will come out again or things will change. How can people make contact with you? What's the best way to do that?
The best way is the website. It is www.NatashaOquendo.com. That's Natasha. My last name is Oquendo, Oquend, as in David, O as in Olive.com.
Okay, great. So before I let you go, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I would like to just speak life over the hearers of this broadcast to know that you are the fact that you are listening, that God is awakening your ears to hear him, and that you are getting ready. Your life is getting ready to change, right? Things are getting ready to shift in your life. I decree that as you're listening, that your life begins to shift and that things begin to come clearer to you, that the spirit of clarity, right, would come upon you, that the eyes of your understanding would be open and enlightened to the hope of your true calling and purpose, right? And that God would come in and intervene, that he would send angelic assistance to intervene in any areas of your life that is detrimental to you, right? And I speak and decree that over you today in Jesus' name.
Thank you, everyone. This is Dr. Tami Patzer, and I really want to thank you, Dr. Natasha. It's been very enlightening. And again, I think everyone if you didn't take notes, go back, listen again, take notes, and listen for those golden nuggets that Dr. Natasha shared. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.